Welcome back to another episode of Let's Face the Facts. I'm your host. My name is David Almeida. I'm an actor in Orlando, Florida, and every week I sit down with an actor or artist friend. We watch an episode of the classic sitcom The Facts of Life, and then I hit record, and we get to talking about the show, about anything the show makes us think about, and anything that the things the show makes us think about makes us think about. It's a lot of talking. Yeah. My guest this week is Stephen Miller. Steve is not just a talented friend of mine, he's actually my bestie. He's my BFF, the closest of my closest friends. He has been an actor and a voiceover artist. He's a very gifted writer, an amazing playwright, a published playwright, actually. And I will add, in spite of being my bestie, he is also super smart. Steve and I watched Season 4, Episode 7, A Woman's Place. And we actually did this and recorded this on Christmas night. That is how much we care about you, my fives of listeners. And that is how difficult scheduling things is around the holidays when you're an actor in Central Florida. And if you can't hear the wear and tear on my voice, that should tell you everything you need to know. The original air date of this episode was November 24th, 1982, and I think we're ready to jump on in. Let's face the facts with Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to my house.
I've never been here before.
Isn't it nice?
Foreign land.
Now, with a name like Steve Miller, I'm sure no one has ever made the joke about the Steve Miller Band.
Constantly. And now we've got that butthead in the current administration.
I don't know who you're talking about.
The racist.
What? We don't talk about him. He doesn't exist.
Oh. No. I'm talking about the racist in the administration who shares my name.
Oh, okay. We don't talk about him. Okay. We don't talk about any of that. La,
okay,
la,
good,
la, la.
Good.
We sit in our bubble, put our fingers in our ears and go, la, la, la,
watch
la.
80s sitcoms.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yes, exactly.
We talk about Mrs. Garrett's bun.
Right.
So we just watched Season 4, Episode 7, called A Woman's Place. And of course, for those who may actually not know what that is a reference to.
Super old phrase.
Old phrase.
Yeah, woman's place is in the home.
Correct.
Right, and it was like 1900s, 1910s, wasn't it? Like, it was really early.
I suppose it might have been initially a phrase just about, where you belong. A dog's place is in your lap, a woman's place. But I think
it had something to do with the vote.
Oh, did it have to do with the...
I really do.
The vote in the 20s?
Women shouldn't get involved in tens.
So when did the women get the right to vote? Was it
1919?
Okay,
I was 1920. Okay, so it's either 1920 and the 19th Amendment or 1919 and the 20th Amendment. It's 1920 and the 19th Amendment.
That's why I said 20s, because, okay, there it is. But there's also a part of me that thinks it may have been part of the backlash of the women's lib movement in the 70s, where women were suddenly like, we want to be part of the workforce. We want to have our independence. And I feel like it morphed into a conservative...
misogynistic
chant sort of a thing, where it's like, no, a woman's place is in the home.
Right, and the phrase was born in the 1910s.
Okay, yeah. So it had to do with women trying to... In the 1910s, women were trying to do crazy shit like, I want to leave the house when when I want to, not when my husband says I can.
I would certainly like to have my own land and my own pay.
And a credit card without my husband's name on it. And they did win that in the 70s.
Yeah.
In our lifetime. Ooh. Women could not. It boggles the fucking mind. And sometimes it feels like we're going back to those days. But back to that talk about the administration that we won't talk about.
Yes.
So as a person of a certain age like me, are you comfortable divulging your age?
Sure.
To the masses?
Sure, I'm younger than you.
You are not by much. You are almost exactly a year younger than
Yeah, a year and...
less than a year.
11 days. No, a year... 11 days less than a year.
Yeah,
there it is.
Yeah. If I could subtract 11 from 365,
that would be...
I would totally do that.
354.
That's why I'm an actor. I don't do math.
Nice.
But so you are about a year younger than I am. So did you grow up watching the show?
Yeah. Now, the thing is, in my family, my stepmother controlled the television. We had one television. My stepmother controlled it, and this was one of the shows that we would watch.
Oh.
So, yes.
So she liked this. All right, good.
Yeah.
Was there any issue or backlash or with the fact that it dealt with such issues? The fact that it would deal with it. There was an episode about abortion. There was an episode about
Remember
suicide.
that my stepmother is the one who let me watch the first TV showing of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf when I was 9 years old.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's the same stepmother. So
Okay,
no,
yeah.
she didn't care. Television was actually kind of a safe space
Okay.
because if we just shut up and watch it, we were fine.
Oh, okay, cool. Before we begin really pulling this thing apart, not unlike the way Joe pulls apart Porsche.
Right.
It's a lot of P's. Steve Miller, would you please give me a 1 to 2 sentence TV guide style synopsis of the episode What Did We Just Watch?
Jo succeeds in her new job at a motorcycle repair shop until she's made a manager. I'd leave it at that. Let the mystery evolve a little bit, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Spoken like a true playwright, Steve.
Or someone who helps people become managers.
Let's get right into this, why don't we? We are going to start in the cafeteria. Clearly, it is on a weekend because the girls, we do not have an Eastland uniform at all.
No.
It's all street clothes, so this is a weekends only episode.
Right.
So clearly we are starting on I guess it's a Friday night because we have 2 additional days.
Right, and doesn't Blair say the car needs to be fixed by next Friday?
That's true. That's possible. So, at the cafeteria, Natalie is hitting the books. And Mrs. Garrett walks by and says she's very impressed.
Your head's been in that book for hours.
Yes. And it turns out Natalie is suddenly a psychology freak.
Right.
She's studying psychology and she's suddenly like loving how twisted and weirdly the human brain operates.
Right.
And that's going to come back to haunt us for this entire episode because literally the only humor, I should say one of the main sources of humor in the show, is Natalie interjecting during these tense moments her quick psychology analysis. And there's one point later on where they're just having a big old fight and she just pops in and just says, he's upset. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, we got that, Nat. Tootie enters. It looks like Tootie has some sort of a scale model, like she might be designing.
Yeah, I did see that. It looked like a set.
Yeah, like she was designing a set for theater class. I'm impressed, writers. They usually don't get that deep into it.
Yeah.
The fact that, I mean, it's never noted or referred to, but yeah, it does look like a little bit of like a set design thing that she's doing. And good, because she's studying theater and will be going on to do that. But the one thing we have talked about, it's the weekend, and it's like the girls at the school clearly don't eat on the weekends. They're never working. And
right.
They act like it's just this extra, like it's like schoolwork or a job.
But it's a boarding school, so you would think that they would need to eat on the weekends.
3 meals a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
Yep. And with Tootie there, it's just reinforcing the psychology thing. She's like, hey, Nat, what's that? She says, Gestalt. Bless you.
Wow. Anytime anyone says a German word and someone else says bless you, it's such a timely joke.
Yeah, timely, as in it's been around for the longest time.
Yes.
Thank you, vaudevillian writers. But so that's pretty much it. We've just established that Natalie is into her psychology. Then Joe comes in, and Joe has got a boy with her.
A boy who's
got his arm around her. So it's clearly a person that she is seeing romantically. And it's like, oh, what is this? We've never seen this boy before.
His name is Doug.
His name is Doug. And the actor who plays him is
Dean Simone.
Dean Simone. And you said you recognize. I didn't have a chance to look him up.
So this is horrible because every so often I'll catch a commercial and I'll be, that's a very particular face. And he's actually the actor who portrays Jim Beam in all the Jim Beam commercials.
What?
Yeah, that's exactly who it is. His name is Dean Simone, and he is Jim Beam in all the new Jim Beam commercials. It's not particularly that I drink, because I really don't. He's Jim Beam.
Wow. He's still working, too. He's still got credits. And
hopefully it's a turtle.
I'm just scrolling through pictures of Dean Simone, and suddenly Mitch McConnell shows up, and it's like, yeah. But yeah, he's the Jim Beam. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. See, I'm not a drinker at all, so that's certainly nothing I would have ever picked up on.
And hopefully a better actor here than he was in this little part of his.
I think he was fine.
Oh, okay.
I think he was... Okay, you disagree. All right.
No. His lack of reaction toward anything anyone was saying, that sort of dead eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you that little stone face type of a thing. Anyhow, what we learn is that Joe and this guy work together at a local, I guess it is a motorcycle shop, but Joe later will be repairing a car there. So but it's technically a bike shop.
Yeah. It's always a good thing to date your coworkers. I think that's,
Yeah.
They just gloss right over that, right? They just gloss right over. Wow, you're dating your coworker.
Yeah, but honestly, it's like you're in high school and it's a weekend job. Yes, if you want to date, you fucking do it. This is the time. Don't do it when you're 40.
Right.
It's like that's when it's a bad idea. But this, it's like, why the fuck not do it? Jesus. But the news that they've come in with, they're very happy about, is that Joe had repaired some type of a bike, and Doug is there to verify that the boss was impressed, and he usually doesn't even show emotion at all. So this was a big deal that Joe is doing well at her job, and it is being noticed.
Right. And what does the boss say that's really impressed? It's like, huh. I mean,
he goes, huh, it works.
Yeah, it works.
And they're that's such a big deal. And he's like, that's what he said when his wife had their baby.
Yes, that was a good joke.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. But it's like, and clearly Doug is like, yeah, Joe is awesome. Like, it's like, she did great because Joe is awesome. So this is like, they work together and they respect each other.
Right. And yet they acknowledge that the boss is super, super old school, right?
Yeah.
That he's super, super sexist.
It took forever to get him to hire Joe. Doug had to put in a good word. Yes.
He said no 6 times.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, Blair then comes in. And Blair is in a panic. She's freaking out. Long and short of it is, she's borrowing her dad's Porsche this week. And it is his favorite car, presumably of several. And it suddenly has stopped running. And she may or may not have shifted, what did she say, from third
to reverse. But before Blair panics, one of the things I love is that Doug comes in and starts explaining how the boss is not a feminist. He's old school and he's not a feminist. And Mrs. Garrett responds by, I've got some pie in the kitchen.
Yes, let's celebrate. You're right. I didn't even think about that. And it's weird because Mrs. Garrett, and she says, I have a fresh apple pie that needs a reason to be eaten. It's like, not that you need to feed a student body.
No.
Maybe. But yes, you're so, I didn't even think about that.
He's not a feminist. Let's go celebrate by this pie I baked.
Then I was just eating the kitchen baking. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you missed what feminist, okay, never mind.
So among Blair's panic, Joe is like, well, what's wrong with it? Maybe I can fix it, bring it to the shop. And Blair, we have a little interesting, this is the first of several points in the show where Lisa Whelchell's Texas twang comes out in full force. And I mentioned it, and you said you noticed it too, so it wasn't just me.
Right, and there's a couple places.
Yeah, and she says, Joe says, I fiddle with Porsches all the time. She says, Joe, I don't need someone to fiddle with it. I need someone to fix it by Friday night.
Sounds
Naya. Yeah, you're right. She does say it weird like that. Yeah. But yeah, wow. And it does happen later. We'll get to it when it happens. And Blair does say,
But she's got an entrance, doesn't she? That whole panic, nobody panic, everyone blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's like one of those, woo, you couldn't figure out a better way to have her make an entrance.
Yeah, but the stakes were pretty high. Her dad has cut off her credit cards in the past.
And they compare that to capital punishment. And Tootie makes the joke, capital punishment is when they kill you. And she says, yes, like I said, he cut off my credit. Which is a pretty funny joke.
Oh, yeah. That's and appropriate to character. We get it. That would be like death.
You know what joke I did like at this point?
What?
Where Blair says, I'll just buy him another Porsche.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Garrett says, that won't work. And Blair says, and they just pass by the joke, oh, yeah, it's like the dog.
Yeah. He'd know the difference.
Yeah, he'd know the difference. It's like, you did that with the dog. Oh. It's a really good... They do have a few jokes where they just let him sit there.
Yeah. I mean, the implication was not that she had replaced his dog. That would have been hilarious. That's a more modern spin to it.
Right.
And she said, no, his car is like his dog. He would know the difference.
But it does hint that there probably is a story.
No, but if she said, oh, no, it would be like that time with his dog.
Yeah.
He'd know the difference.
Yeah.
That would be that's our rewrite. We'll give that note to the writers in our time machine. There's also Mrs. Garrett, I feel like there was a missed opportunity because Blair says, I'll buy him a new one. And Mrs. Garrett says, Blair, you can't do that. And I wanted her to add can you?
Exactly.
Do you have that much fucking money at your disposal? Could you write a check for a fucking poor? Are you that rich? I wish they'd done it. It would have been totally right and appropriate, I think.
Yeah.
But, oh well. Missed opportunity. And could have been a laugh for Mrs. Garrett. She doesn't really have that many great moments here.
She does have one later.
Yeah.
Where does she make that?
She has one of her shouty lines where she just punches one word in the sentence illogically. I did write it down.
I remember where she made me laugh the most, though. But we'll save that.
Okay. Well, good. And just to reinforce how in Joe's corner Doug is. When Joe offers to fix the car and reassures Blair she'll probably be able to get it done, Doug's line, I quoted this, they don't come much better than Joe. Not to read anything sexually into that. No. But anyway.
Dating a coworker.
Yeah. Exactly. But he leaves, and then we have this lovely... Tootie gets into this mom mode of giving people the third degree of wanting to know what's going on, and it is very funny. And so Tootie is like, what is going on? What is this? What's happening here?
Oh, this joke. I love this
And,
one.
and Blair does say... Mrs. Garrett does say, Doug seems to have... When Doug says, yes, I'll have some of that apple pie you offer. Mrs. Garrett says, well, the boy's got good taste. In food and in girls.
Right.
Meaning she loves that he's with Joe.
But at one point, don't they say, what is the thing going on between you and Doug? And she says,
our relationship
it's just business.
It's just business.
And Lisa Welch says, what kind of business is that? Or Tootie says, what kind of business?
Tootie says it.
What kind of business is that? And Joe just goes, mine.
Yes. Beautiful.
One line. That's
lovely.
All it is. Yeah.
Lovely. And not malicious.
No.
It's very just tossed off. Mine. Nope, none of your fucking business. Love it. Then we move on to the auto body shop. And she and Joe and Doug steal a smooch.
Right, and then they come in and Blair has such a smart entrance line.
Yeah, but before that, they do
the
talk
whole
about...
shop is kind of a wreck.
Oh, the shop, absolutely, the shop is a wreck. And then after the smooch, they talk about their date that they went on the night before. And they mentioned playing Donkey Kong. And I just had to say that because I loved it. That was my jam,
My
man.
brother Chris, that was his.
I could play it when I find an arcade that has old style machines and I find it's like, okay, you just leave me here. You go away for a couple hours.
Right.
Donkey Kong is the fucking shit. I just want to go on record saying that. So then the boss comes in and we meet the boss. This is Mr. Garrow, G-A-R-O,
Garrow, something. Yeah, he's Eastern European of some sort.
Yeah, he's played by, here's an actor's name. This is a mouthful. Pierrino Mascarino. Very Italian name, but he's playing him like he's Eastern European or foreign or something from Europea.
Yeah, it sounds
I guess.
like a medicated cream, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Cleared up my rash in just 2 days.
Beautiful. So we have an exchange where he walks in and he expresses once again how impressed he is with Joe's work. And he says to her, "You're sure you're a girl?"
Right.
And Joe does not take offense to this. She's just like, yeah.
See, there were so many chances for jokes.
Yeah.
Like even the old time, last time I checked.
Yeah, I thought for sure they would go to that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But for whatever reason, but he's like, I'm not sure I believe it. I don't think it is. And I don't even know what accent I'm doing to do
Right.
him.
But it's close.
Yeah,
I'm not sure he knew what accent he was doing.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Vaguely Eastern European.
Yeah. Yeah. But then the others, Mrs. Garrett and Tootie and Natalie and Blair, pop on in to say hi.
While Doug and Joe are kissing.
Oh, that's right. They steal another smooch. So
Right.
they walk in on the kiss and it's all, ooh.
No, and Lisa has this, and the shop's a wreck. And she goes, love among the ruins of a motorcycle shop. it's like a really funny line because they probably would have read the Robert Browning poem or would have.
Yeah.
The movie came out in 1975 with Katharine Hepburn and Laurence Olivier.
I never saw it. I'm
Oh,
not
really?
familiar. No.
Yeah, she's a cougar. She's got a new fiance. Her old fiance comes to sue her for breach of contract. And Olivier is a lawyer, if I remember right, who represents her. But he also used to be a beau of hers, and she doesn't remember him.
Oh, wow.
I want to say that's the plot.
Wow. Okay.
And it has hardly anything to do with the Browning poem.
So they say they wanted to pop on in.
Right.
And Natalie.
And Joe pop on in. Or Natalie and Tootie pop on in.
Yeah, they're all there. Yeah. Mrs. Garrett.
It is
Blair.
the most awkward, let's get them all in the same set where things can happen. It is so sloppy. I winced. I was just like...
Yeah, it's true. And so when they's like, we just thought we'd come in and check on the Porsche. And Natalie doing them playing up the Jewish thing without the Jewish thing being directly referenced. It's like we thought we would just swing on by. And Natalie says, and we're glad we did, as she walks over to Doug like,
She's looking for a gift for her mother's birthday in a motorcycle shop.
Supposedly, yeah, exactly. So, and then Tootie even references their earlier conversation. Yes, some business relationship. And so Blair is horrified at how much of the car is pulled apart and strewn about the shop.
Right.
And Joe says, Blair, it's part of the process of fixing it. You've got to tear it down to build it up. And Blair says, who are you, the Karl Marx of auto repair? And it's like, is that really what a high school...
Yeah, that's a little
18?
Elaborate for,
An 18-year-old...
Yeah.
Even for the smartest 18-year-old, and Blair is no brainiac.
And I know this is another thing that probably only drove me crazy, but there's so much clutter on the set that they basically all have to stand in a line.
Yes.
Oh my God, it drove me crazy. There were too
Yeah.
many people and too much junk on the set, so they all had to just stand in a line.
Yeah, it was an excessively busy...
Badly blocked.
Yeah. And, yeah, they maybe could have designed the set to be a little more... to facilitate that better. I agree. So then while they're there, there's a thing of Mrs. Garrett, don't touch the tools. Just extra stuff to try to squeeze in jokes, particularly for Charlotte Rae, because her role is slowly becoming less and less as the series progresses.
Right, because, I think that they realized that they had kind of a family show and that more people were interested in the kids than Charlotte Rae in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Well, and the kids were, the idea is that, she's the static one and the kids are the ones that are evolving. And that's infinitely more interesting. So then Mr. Garrow comes back and he says, I've got good news and I've got bad news. And Natalie
Rex, the
thing, and Natalie is like, he's like, what do you want first? The good news or the bad news? And Natalie's like, bad news. And of course he's like, who the fuck are you and why are you here?
Why are any of them there?
Exactly.
If he really owns the shop and he's such a butthead, he would have just kicked him out.
Yeah, you're right. You think for what an overbearing presence is, he'd be like, you need to leave, get the fuck out. And they would have been like, yep, yes sir, yes sir.
Because there's barely any logic to being here anyway. So yes.
He says, Rex, the weekend service manager, has quit. And isn't that the point when Mrs. Garrett says, why did he quit?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, what? First, they're trying to play up the
Did
joke.
you know, Rex?
Exactly.
Is he okay?
Yeah, but they're trying to play up this joke of them interfering, these outsiders interfering on this business conversation. So the thing of I want the bad news first. Now it's this illogical, why did he quit? And he's like, what? Who the fuck are you people? And he's right. But what it all boils down to is Jo is the new weekend manager. He has promoted her. They're all, yay, that's terrific. And they huddle around her and hug her. And then the scene dissolves to the next scene. Anything else to add for that?
Well, except that, for a living, I watch a lot of people who are experts at their jobs.
Yeah.
Then become managers, and they have no people management skills. So it doesn't surprise me. It happens with teenagers. Honestly, teenagers get, bumped up in shop jobs or jobs in stores and things like that they have. And they don't have any people management skills, and they fail. It happens at coffee shops. It happens, honestly, in corporations. It happens left and right. It happens at some big corporations. So, there was a little part of me going, well, she's going to fail.
Yeah. We're not even in the first commercial. This isn't going to go well.
This isn't going to go well.
Yeah. Isn't it one of the Dilbert principles
Yes.
of being promoted?
It's called the Peter Principle.
Oh, Peter principle.
Yeah, you're promoted to your level of ineffectiveness.
Yeah. So, if you're good at your job, you get promoted to a middle management. If you're good at middle management, you'll be promoted to upper management.
Until you fail.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And then they let you sit there.
Yeah.
Which is oftentimes why they hire me.
Yeah. Nice. So the next day, we know this is the next day. And by the way, I referenced earlier that we have no uniforms. We are all in street clothes this entire time. And honestly, there is nothing, some of these are repeat outfits we've seen before. And there's really nothing I haven't already said. The same street outfits stuff. Just listen to every other podcast.
Right.
Do you have anything special?
Why is Blair in her grandmother's blouse at the beginning that is such a dowdy-ass blouse?
With the puffy
Gray
sleeves and the high
plats and the pleats and the...
The term I've used before, it's a Dorothy Michaels blouse.
It is.
Because it comes up to the neck. It's like hiding an Adam's apple.
Right.
Because she's a drag queen, apparently. But yeah, Blair...
My grandmother would have worn that in 1980, 81, 82. Yeah. My grandmother would have worn that.
And she's probably the same age of whoever costumed this.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
And then Joe's shirt, the next scene, it's ginormous.
Yeah.
That linen blue shirt, it's like, why... Okay, I get that she's manly, but that thing is ginormous. It's huge. Is that you've said that one before too?
For Joe,
why doesn't anything fit?
Why doesn't anything fit? But the thing is with Joe, because she always has like the T-shirt and then the lumberjill shirt over it. It's like they're like, good, no tailoring, off the rack, boom, next. Who else do we have to costume?
That shirt was well too large.
I will admit I didn't particularly notice that. I'm not saying. So
you could look it up.
Yeah, I believe you absolutely.
Like when she's putting the apron on, it's like obviously the shirt's getting in the way.
Yeah. But I've said so many times, there's nothing about any costume here that hasn't already been said by me. So anything else you want to add as we go along, please do so.
No, she's good. We're good because then we go into the cafeteria, right?
No, now we are at the next day at the bike shop, and Doug is slamming stuff around. He is not happy. And he's working...
Dead-Eye Doug.
Huh?
Dead-Eye Doug.
Dead-Eye Doug. And so he's working on one bike doing something, and Joe suggests, well, when it's... I think it's the spark plugs.
It's not the spark plugs.
And she says, well, be sure you check the electric, too, because, it could be one or the other. And he's like... And it quickly escalates into him saying, I know what I'm doing.
No, it escalates into him, you tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because you're the boss.
And she says, what does that mean? And he says, it means you're the boss. And I'm like, yeah, it does. I'm not sure what you were trying to solicit with that question, Joe or writers.
Yeah.
But basically, she's like, what is going on? And he's like, well, everything's changed. And she says... We were, so I thought it was good. We were together.
We were a team.
We were a team. And he says, well, we're not a team anymore. Now I work for you. And then it's just Joe alone. Long, pensive stare.
Toward all the shit in the shop.
And then the slow, silent fade.
Yeah.
And
To
that's
the Sanka commercial or whatever the hell.
So during the commercial, Steve Miller, this is when I get to know my guests.
We've known each other for 27 years.
Is it 27?
27.
Yeah. We've been friends longer than some of our friends have been alive. Yeah. You are one of the people I probably know the most about. It is very odd to be interviewing you and saying, so, Steve, where were you born?
Oh, I was born in a small town in Iowa, actually.
A town in what town in Iowa would that be?
Creston.
Creston, as it is on a crest, right?
Between two hills. It's fascinating history. When Burlington Northern was building their railroad line, David, right, between Chicago and wherever the hell they were building it to, literally it was the highest point between the Mississippi and the Missouri River on the line. So they went and said, well, let's call it Creston.
Yep. And that's exactly how they said it.
It is a railroad town. It is 7,200 people. It's been 7,200 people from the beginning of time.
Because every time a new baby is born, they kill someone.
No. So for every 20-year-old that leaves,
a
farmer retires. That's what happens. And it's not a pretty town. It is. Yeah. You've seen pictures.
I've seen pictures.
It's not pretty.
Yeah. So we both know that in a family full of rough, you were the diamond. As in...
They would disagree, but okay.
Yeah. Meaning that your family, you have spoken that you come from simple Midwestern, lower class, working...
GED.
Yeah, people. And yet you were...
Marijuana possession...
DUI, fist fights at funerals, type of family.
Yes.
And drinking. Yeah. Do they drink?
Oh,
in the Midwest?
Shocking.
What?
Shocking. We have enough Irish in us that, yes, we drink.
Yes. So you were the anomaly in your family where you were the smart kid, you were the bookworm.
Right, and I was the one who couldn't keep his mouth shut. My little sister said, Steve, none of this stuff would have happened to you if you would have just shut your mouth. But I was also a smartass. Yeah,
you're also smart. But you were a smartass because I'm sure it was, as a child, you realized that in a battle of wits, your family was unarmed against you.
Somewhat.
I mean, really. So you, for some reason, got the sponge brain gene where you just needed to absorb things and you needed to escape. So you ran to books and very quickly became the smart one in your family.
I didn't have a police record. I didn't have probation. I didn't break windows. I didn't, I didn't, race bicycles into cars, things like that.
Yeah. So therefore you were an oddity.
I was.
And so that took you to a very tiny little college. How far away is Lamoni?
About 70 miles.
70 miles.
I could drive back and forth if I ever wanted to go back to Creston, and for the most part, except for my adopted grandmother, I never did.
Yeah.
Never wanted to.
Yeah. So in Lamoni, Iowa, you went to what school?
It's called Graceland University. Go ahead and make the Elvis Presley jokes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Just like the Steve Miller Band jokes.
Yep, Steve Miller went to Graceland. Oh, that's odd. I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah.
But this was actually a small private college, right?
Yeah, liberal arts.
Liberal arts college, where you majored in what?
Communications and theater with a concentrated on writing. So it included playwriting and screenwriting. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And I have said many times to many people, one of the best bits of advice I can give to young actors is become good friends with a very gifted playwright, because then they will write very good roles for you, which you have for many of the shows that we've produced and put together at the Fringe Festival and all that stuff. So we first met through some theatrical endeavors. And
my first day in Orlando, my first full day in Orlando, which was May 17th.
Of 1993.
Yes.
Wow. And so, wait a minute. May of 93.
It was at the center on Mills. Or on
so
50,
then
50 on 50.
So then when we met, Wesley was 2 months old. Wesley was born in March, 3 months old. He was born in,
And already dancing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
But, so you and I, we were friendly because we were working as part of this gay theater troupe that our friends were putting together called the Hatbox Revue. And we did some stuff. We wrote some stuff. We performed some stuff. We went off. We ended up realizing we connected on our love of movies.
Right.
And while I was film critic for Watermark,
I was film critic for Slate, for the Orlando version of Slate, which was an old website / sort of pro boards sort of thing.
but is it the same Slate that's like out of Seattle now?
Yeah.
The same?
Yeah.
Oh.
But they had different little regional startups.
That makes sense.
That's how they started. So.
Yeah. So we quickly started realizing we could go to movies together, and we started comparing notes, and it was actually helpful to write our reviews.
And fixing the movies on the way home.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that's why doing this, I'm always like, let's give some notes to the writers. And you've been great because you are so infinitely more versed than I am in all the arts as far as understanding opera and poetry and prose and all the things that I kind of missed because I was home watching The Facts of Life.
You were watching television, and I was hiding out in the Matilda J. Gibson library, grabbing onto anything that I could grab onto to keep me from having to go home, basically.
Yeah, or have a nervous breakdown, yeah.
Or watch my stepmother have one.
Yes. Yeah. So, but theatrically, you still write. You performed years ago. We did some performing together.
Yeah.
There was a brief Playwrights Roundtable is a group in town that we've been a part of. And that's a great place to workshop new plays. And I wrote a 10-minute play, and through a series of fortunate events, you ended up acting in it. And I was the writer.
Weird sort of Twilight Zone switch.
It was. So you do still write. We have produced stuff together that you have written that I performed in. And nowadays you still come to me with these great ideas, with these great shows you have in process.
And they're just all in notes, and they just sit in notes. Because, except for the one I'm working on right now. Yeah,
life intervenes, and nowadays you have for many years worked in the corporate world. And quickly explain what your job is now, and how it so perfectly applies to this episode, almost like I planned it.
Well, so I do leadership management and people enablement learning for Brambles. It is a global supply chain company. We help people move things from raw goods to manufacturers to stores to customers. Largely, we do reuse in pallets and containers and things like that, but we also help businesses figure out the best way, the most fuel-efficient way, the best way to lower their greenhouse gases to get to zero packaging input. But what I do is I do the people enablement development. So I do leadership training, management training. I help them with conflict management. I step in when there's an issue or a problem that they know is coming up, and I help do some learning based on that, on how people work with each other. So it's got my sort of organizational psychology side and all that interpersonal communication that I studied in my undergraduate kind of all tied together, and I've been doing that for about 22 years.
Yeah. So let us go back to The Facts of Life.
We've got Joe, now the boss of her boyfriend, and he's not taking it well. We've got Natalie studying psychology, and all of a sudden, remember the theme here is a woman's place.
A woman's place.
So all of a sudden it becomes a lot of questions, and good questions, about feminism and how men react and how oftentimes men are hurt because they're put in situations where it isn't the traditional knuckle dragging sort of thing.
Yeah.
So Joe comes in, she's all upset. She comes into the cafeteria, and Blair, of all the people who could give her advice, and maybe she's doing it because she wants to get the porch fixed, Blair says, "Oh, you've got to feel like you're stupid and he's smart, or you've got to..."
Yeah, you gotta downplay that. And Blair says there are two basic truths: no man is an island, and always let the boy win.
Yes.
And it's like, ooh. And it's one of those things where, oh my God, that is horrible. It's true, but it's horrible.
Yeah. Well, and then she also says later, doesn't she say something like, it's like an outfit that you slip into, and that's where the Texas twang came out.
Yeah.
Slip into it like a negligee.
Yeah, that's right. She says, Make him think he's in charge, even though he isn't. You have to, and she discusses the delicate nature of the male ego. And she says, you have the power. You just need to wear it right. You can't just throw it on like a leather jacket. You have to slip into it like a negligee.
Like a negligee.
Yeah, her twang. She must have just gone home. Like they must have been on they must have had a week off where she went home to Texas.
And Joe's great response is, I'm not doing anything weird.
Yeah, right? That's right.
and then Natalie or someone says, no, that's not what she's talking about, is it?
Yeah, Natalie has a great, little perfect timing.
Yeah.
But Natalie does say that thing, a woman of the 80s should have it all. It's so funny. Referencing one of my favorite movies of all time, Tootsie. Mm-hmm. And the point when Jessica Lange says to Dustin Hoffman in drag, don't you find it difficult being a woman of the 80s? And Dustin Hoffman's response is, extremely.
Yes. Which is funny. It's hilarious.
It's just that, but I remember that term because, we were barely toddlers when the 70s hit. But this term, the woman of the 80s, because we were now a decade into the feminist.
And remember that we started to see these strong women. We started to see them on Dallas. We started to see them on Falcon Crest. Stephanie Zimbalist, we knew, ran what was Remington Steele. She had to act like he was in charge when it was really her that was the brain. There was Because I'm Worth It L'Oreal all over. You started to see Patrick Nagel do his artwork, which even though it was sexual, women were in power there.
Yeah.
They weren't any shy sort of half-covering women. They were like, nope, this is me naked, here's everything. And by the way, cool earrings, so yeah.
Yeah, no, it's...
Put women in shoulder pads, and it was about strength.
The power. The term power suit never didn't exist till the 80s. That was
it's like an armor almost, right?
Yeah. And again, with the corporatization of our culture in the 80s, a big part of that was now we had women. The image, you think of Bette Midler in Big Business,
right,
where it's the woman in a tailored business suit, but with sneakers on because she's walking from the subway to her job. But then she takes the sneakers off and puts on her heels.
Or a little later, Sigourney Weaver in Working Girls, right?
Oh, totally, yeah. And Melanie Griffith, too.
Later,
Yeah. But, so it absolutely is, this is a very timely subject matter to be dealing with, because this really was a turning point culturally for us that I don't think we realize, that a lot of people don't think in hindsight.
Right.
So before we leave this scene, though, we have to address earlier, before they get into that discussion, this is where Mrs. Garrett says to Joe, did you talk to him? All Joe has been talking about is the conversations and this and that. And then Mrs. Garrett is like, did you talk to him? And it's like she's been recounting their interactions. Yes, she's been talking to him. One
of the jokes that I love at this point is when Joe gets upset and Natalie just kind of peeks in and goes, latent psychoses with neurotic undertones.
Yes, beautiful.
I just loved it. It's like,
Natalie was really kind of on fire comedically.
Well, I mean, because I think they actually put in the psychology just so they could have some humor.
Yeah.
It's like the writers were smart enough to go, wow, this sort of feminist episode, hard to come by the humor.
Yeah, true. And Mrs. Garrett does say, it's only the first day. It may take some getting used to. And then Joe says, I thought Doug was such a progressive, open-minded guy. And Natalie says, well, when it comes to women's lib, it's one thing when they're reading it in Newsweek, but not the same in real life.
So the Newsweek question, why did she mention Newsweek? Was Newsweek under the same media umbrella as NBC? Why didn't she mention like Time or something else?
I don't believe,
I was a little curious, like, did the same company own Newsweek?
But, NBC wasn't corporate owned by, like, Time Warner. Okay. Like, we didn't have that, NBC wasn't.
That's true. That comes later. But that whole scene in the cafeteria was all overacting. Did you notice that?
Well, it's still film theater.
Yeah.
It's still film theater. And
on top of that, is it that they have two cameras in the cafeteria set and they only have one camera in the motorcycle shop?
No, it's usually 3 cameras everywhere.
Jeebus, because they're like the motorcycle shop, you're like, why is it blocked this way?
The camera blocking and the physical blocking in the motorcycle shop was odd and seemed off. But in this conversation, we get to the point where Mrs. Garrett she drops a fucking bomb on the girls and on us as longtime Facts of Life fans. I did not remember this. When Paul Padilla and I were talking about it, he mentioned, I was like, what? I don't remember this. Mrs. Garrett says, well, back when Howard, the chef, was working for me and we were dating, it was tough for him sometimes to be working for me. And all the girls, thankfully, just like us, were like, wait a minute, what? And they say, our Howard, that worked here, the chef.
Right. The one that we were introduced in the first episode of season 2?
Correct. Yeah, the chauvinist pig, by the way.
Second episode, because it was a 2-part episode.
Yeah, second. But it's like, and he is portrayed as at one point, he says something like women shouldn't be whatever. And Natalie's response is, oh, what else are we serving? Chauvinist pig?
Right.
Because he is not portrayed in that initial scene.
And it brings me back to the point, Mrs. Garrett, why are you dating an employee?
Yeah.
Why are you? No.
Yeah, that you should know better.
Yeah.
You should way know better.
Yes.
So they're all completely shocked, and rightfully so. And Howard was on, by the way, 6 episodes, I believe, is all we ever saw Howard. So he was barely there, barely there. And then he went away, and it's like, apparently they don't need him.
Well, she broke up with him.
And got him fired.
Right, that's what you do when you date your employees.
At your place of work.
And there's no lawsuit whatsoever.
Yeah, she put a rat in a rump roast or something, yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
But, so on Mrs. Garrett's exit, the overacting, Tootie, they're like, Tootie, I think they might have even let Kim Fields improvise a little, because she's all, what? I cannot believe it. How long were you together? Why didn't you tell us? I thought we were family around. And she just is going at it until she's off stage.
Right. I think they're going to the kitchen for more pie. What does she say she's doing? Rump roast calling her name, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So, and it's again where the girls start prying, and Mrs. Garrett's like, no, this conversation's over, and I'm not telling you anything more. Relating back to that Joe thing.
Because I was dating an employee.
Yeah, exactly. Unethical. So, yeah, it was just very, very weird. Anyway, we go back to the bike shop, and still problems with Joe and Doug, and what? Mrs. Garrett and the girls pop in again.
All of them.
Because they felt so welcome there last time.
Right.
They come in, and no sooner do they get there than Joe sort of starts to try to take Blair's advice. And she's like,
Gee, Doug, I can't even figure out what this thing with 2 wheels is.
Yeah. She basically, the long and short of this scene is that while the girls are there, Joe does try to sort of implement some Blairisms of, well, I said it was this, it could be that, I could be wrong.
And the one thing that I really, really laughed at, because this is what television should do, was Mrs. Garrett's face.
Oh. She looked like she smelled something bad.
Like,
it was
what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
It was this great face.
Yeah.
And I feel like sitcoms should do that more, right?
Yeah.
Show those really funny reactions, because she didn't need a line.
Yeah.
She didn't need a line.
No. And then, and so Joe overshoots it. She's clearly not doing a good job at it.
No.
And like you said, she says something like, it's a wonder I can fix anything.
It's not even like she smelled something bad. It's like she smelled something that she couldn't even identify.
Yeah, she was just completely
What is that?
gobsmacked. And so in that same shot, Natalie, perfect time. Natalie is a great Eve Arden in this episode.
Yes,
She's
yes.
really doing. And Natalie just goes, Joe, get over here. Just like what the fuck?
And even Blair says,
Oh no. She says, what are you doing? And then she says, oh no, one of them says, what are you doing? You're acting just like Blair. And Blair says, it's disgusting.
Well, at one point, Joe says, I'm doing what you told me to do. And Blair said, you pretending like you don't know motorcycles is like me pretending I'm not fabulous or I'm not spectacular.
Yeah, exactly. And she said, I told you to play helpless, not brainless.
Right.
But in the course of, and what she's saying is, thankfully, you're not being yourself is really what it's coming down to.
And Mrs. Garrett gets a little speech in there.
Yeah, exactly. And she says, I forget how we get into this, but I wrote this down. I think I quoted this. She says, "He'll want you to be everything you can be, not just what he feels comfortable with." And in the course of Joe trying to delegate work to Doug to make
appease him
and make him feel better,
she's given him
and
something,
it does look like it's working, by the way.
She's given him something that Mr. Garrow particularly and specifically gave her.
Yeah, and told her, "I want you to do this."
So,
and she says, "But maybe Doug could." He's like, "No,
you."
And he's working on something for a customer who's waiting. Well, Joe goes ahead and does it anyway. And no sooner does it happen, Mr. What is it?
Garrow.
Garrow.
Comes in and just fires her.
Basically says...
demotes her right in front of everyone.
He demotes her in front of everybody. "Thank you for your sensitivity, you fucking piece of shit."
Yeah.
But he says, "Look, I'm not firing you. You're a good mechanic. You're just not a good manager. And go back. I'm just putting you back where you were." And they're
and
like...
Joe's response is, she feels like she could have done it.
Yeah, she says, "I could have done this. I could have." And
then she goes back and gets a little dig into Doug at the end.
But no, Doug suddenly is all sweet to her. It's like in the sitcom, the moods turn on a dime.
Right.
It is, yeah. So he comes and he's like...
When he even... See, this is part of the reason I think Doug sucks as an actor. Because when he tells her, "I'm just only really comfortable when you're in this position and I'm in this position," or...
Yeah.
He looks at her dead in the eye. Like, who wants to admit that they're that much of an asshole by staring at the other person in the face?
Okay. I guess I see that.
Yeah, he has no discomfort.
Oh, I see what you mean. But... Do asshole chauvinist pig men have any discomfort? I'm sure that was part of the layered nuance to the intent of
he's
his...
an onion.
But no sooner does all this happen that the girls all say, "Oh, you just got fired. Bye."
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
you need support now? We're leaving.
Yeah. And so... did they leave before he demotes her? That might have happened before. I think he might have kicked them out.
I don't remember, but
I don't know. I hope they didn't. I hope what we just said is true. Actually, he does kick them out.
Finally.
Beforehand. He says, "I have to talk to my staff, get the fuck out," and they do.
Finally.
Exactly. So then the official demotion happens, and then Doug is all kind of like, "Hey, well,
back to dating.
tough break. Let's go get some lunch." You're supposed to be working on that motorcycle for someone who's waiting,
right?
Fucker. So he's like, "Let's go out and we'll split a pizza, my treat." And then Joe turns and she says, "So everything's okay with us?" Just like that. And he goes, "Yeah, I know I was acting weird before. I guess I just need things to be a certain way." And Joe
staring her in the face like
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Men are the worst. And then she says, "Yeah, no thanks." And he says, let's go get that pizza." And she's like, "No thanks. I'm going to have lunch with my friends." And then she turns back over her shoulder and says, "Oh, and by the way, that thing you're working on, it's not the carburetor, it's the timing coils."
Right.
Quick freeze, roll credits. For all the long, slow, pensive, infinite dissolves we've tolerated in this.
That's a good tight smack and leave.
It was a tight smack and leave. But like you say, we didn't even get a reaction shot from him.
Nope.
Probably, you're right. Probably because it wasn't much to
react on. He dead eye.
It was just a duh. Yeah. So it was probably a flat line anyway. So you were right. Your assessment
like
of him.
Like a brain dead Richard Greco.
So that's the end of the show. Do you think final assessment, good, bad? Did the message that they were aiming for come through?
I think the parts where they let the jokes be the jokes and the lines just sit on the lines and let the people react makes this a better show than I remember the show being in Typical. Like I like that ending and then just leave. Yeah. I did. I thought there's some smart stuff here. I wish they could have bumped it up a bit and done more of it.
Yeah. I think maybe the ending, I wanted her to walk out and there should have been a wide shot of just him standing there, even if it was his back.
3/4.
A 3/4 type of a thing. I think it would have been an even stronger thing to show her literally walking out on him.
Right.
But
and then he drops the rag and then he starts crying.
And then he drops to his knees and goes, "Stella!"
No!
But yeah, the message came through. It would have been nice if the attempts to appease him. It would have been nicer if we somehow could have reverse engineered this episode to give that scene a little more breathing room, because they didn't have time. Joe had to very quickly shift gears, do that,
and her entire, classmates and house mom were there watching her do it. It was,
yeah.
There were some very clunky expositional things that they did that I thought, a good writer would have stepped back and said, okay, how do we make this more practical and probable?
Yeah. In fact, I think I would have preferred that last scene, to not have Mrs. Garrett and the girls. It should have just been Joe working to do the appeasing thing and the delegating. We didn't even need them in there. They could have more subtly had her trying it and then fucking it up.
Or honestly, don't have all the girls there. Just have Blair, because Blair's checking.
Oh,
on
you're
the car.
right.
Just have Blair.
You're right. You're totally right. Just have Blair there
checking on the car.
And then, and that would have been a good reminder, a good touchstone.
That's one of the things that you need to think about in sitcoms. They don't really all need to be there. It's like simplify and tighten it up, make it funny, make it tight.
Exactly. I agree. But the fact that this is a message about feminism, about saying to the first and only show on network television with an all-female starring cast, say, you know what? Fuck men. And the fact that we have to do shit to appease them and play a role to stroke their egos and make them comfortable.
Yeah, it didn't give all the answers, though. It kind of just left it where it was, and I think the other thing is time has told us that her managing him and dating him, and Edna managing and dating Howard.
Yeah,
those are problematic.
Yeah, that's totally a different time era.
And I'm not sure it was even really wildly acceptable back in the early '80s for a boss to date an employee.
Yeah, probably not. But that's what happens when you let women into the workforce. You fuck it up.
Yeah, they do.
Before, when it was just all men and none of them wanted to bone each other.
Sure, no.
So the final happy, regardless of whether the episode is good or bad, I think we're leaning in the good category here.
I'd give it like a B or B minus.
Yeah, I think I would say that too. But what I've been doing now is then, regardless of how we liked the episode, let's end the podcast on the happy note of name a commercial from your childhood that you think of off the top of your head that makes you happy.
Oh gosh, I never even thought about this. You
listen to the show too. That's so
weird. I do. And I watched a lot of Saturday morning cartoons with my friends, the DeBoards. I think honestly, I remember the Kool-Aid commercials.
Oh, hey, Kool-Aid!
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
I feel like I discussed that with somebody. I feel like that's come up before, because I feel like I remember talking about how, as a kid, I was fascinated with, in the early commercials, his mouth didn't move.
Right.
And then in the later commercials, it would just move on the oh yeah at the end, and it was clearly hand drawn in.
Right.
Frame by frame.
But you got to realize that during the early 80s, we got to go through the great Kool-Aid renaissance, where we got, blue raspberry, and we got all those weird flavors that,
Yeah, tropical punch and stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Before it was just red.
Yeah, exactly. It was, cherry or lime or
orange
or lemon.
Yeah, it was just straight up, the exotical.
Yeah, the red raspberry, which was like one of my favorites.
Red raspberry.
But the blue raspberry, I remember quite clearly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, fabulous. Well, Steve, I can't think of a better way to spend Christmas night with my best friend.
You can't.
I can't, because my life is sad.
Well,
but
it might be that intellect thing you were talking about.
Maybe. But thank you so much for doing this, for allowing me to intrude on our personal time when we would normally be celebrating Christmas together. We already did the family thing earlier today, and typically you and I, we like to do the Christmas story Chinese food.
Yeah, we do.
Tradition. We didn't do that this year.
No.
But it's okay. That makes it more special the other years.
Yeah.
And so any parting words to my fives of listeners before I send you home, never to return?
Maybe my parting words are maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
Gosh, parting words. Don't date your coworkers or employees.
Yeah, good. Bravissimo.
Jeez.
So, Steve, thank you for being a friend. No, that's the wrong show.
No,
I can't say that to you here. That's the wrong show. No, I will say it. Thank you for being a friend. I love that you finally got on the show. You are one of the people I've said you're in my back pocket.
Sure.
When I need you, and it's the holidays, and I've been so busy, and scheduling things is challenging this time of year.
Yes.
For an actor. Go figure. So do come back. I hope to have you back to the house sometime very soon.
Like probably tomorrow.
So let's say good night and goodbye.
Goodbye.
And there you have it. That was Steve Miller. That is my BFF. Little corrections corner. I said that Howard was in 6 episodes of the show back in season 2. I was wrong. He was only in 4. Only 4 episodes. So he didn't last long before Mrs. Garrett chewed him up and spat him out, huh? And the other thing is that we were talking about Kool-Aid. The other person I had talked about that with was Joy Anderson. That was in episode 39 of the podcast from season 3, episode 10, Cousin Jerry Returns. So, moving on. Next week, I'm going to be watching season 4, episode 8, Daddy's Girl. And my very special guest is going to be Matthew Arter. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. And remember, the facts of life are all about you. Let's Face the Facts was produced, written, hosted, and edited by me, David Almeida. My theme song was beautifully arranged and recorded by Ned Wilkinson. Our website is facethefactspod.com. You have to drop the lets. And that's where you can find extra pictures, video, and audio extras from the digital cutting room floor. Follow the show on social media. We're everywhere under the handle Face the Facts Pod. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/FaceTheFactsPod. And don't forget, go to your favorite podcatchers and subscribe, rate, and review. Tune in again next week for another thrilling episode of Let's Face the Facts.